contact information. So as we go through tonight's 5 money question for women's seminar and the participant guide, feel free to add questions to the chat. I want to make sure that you get your questions answered. And as I said before, these 5 questions may spark additional questions. And at that point in time, we can capture those. You can write those actually in your participant manual. And if you wanted to, we could schedule an additional kind of one-on-one conversation to go over those questions or any questions that we have outlined in this participant guide tonight. So with that said, let me see if I can jump back in to the Zoom here. And like I say, everyone loves technology till technology doesn't work for them. So this is kind of what it looks like here. Like I said, I'm going to pull this up so you can actually see it instead of trying to glance at it through my screen here.
John, if it helps, I will share my screen because you sent me the attachment earlier today. So if you like, I'll just I'll share it, and then you just tell me when to click the next tab, okay? John? And we temporarily have lost our speaker. We will find him. Okay, I did see this from one patron that did not receive the handbook. I will follow up and I will get that to you if you provided an email address to us.
Okay. So let me just get my file up here. It was open, but like everything, once it shuts down. And I thank you for your patience. Like I said, this is normally I would be in person presenting this information to you live there, so I can answer your questions first and foremost, but also I can always test the technology out. All right. Let me do it open. It's opening here, and then I'll share this screen. Perfect. We'll get back to Zoom. Share screen. So everyone should hopefully see this participant.
Excellent. Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So like I said, what I'll do is kind of walk us through this because I think it's important to kind of capture the content because the slideshow is no more than just the highlighted content in this book, but I think this really captures it more succinctly. So as we look at this, we're going to go through a few things on fact or fiction, and that's kind of the page 3. Then we're going to look at the 5 questions that you need to ask to yourself to connect with your financial goals. And this could be yourself or your partner to be able to walk through this. And the first question we're going to look at is, where am I today? That's really taking inventory, taking an assessment of where you are today, maybe establishing some goals for yourself, and really just looking at, kind of what do you have currently going on financially in your life today. Then the next question is, where would you like to be? And this is where you're really looking at what goals would I like to set, not only for myself, short term, medium term, long term. And sometimes these don't have to be financial goals, but where would you like to be? And then put a time frame to that as well. And then the next thing is can I get there? We're going to assess what are you doing today? What are your plans? And then can you get to your actual goal? And then how do I get there? What's the path that you need to take? Everyone's path is a little different because everyone has different things going on in their lives. And then how do I stay on track? What are those things that I need to do to consistently make sure that I'm reaching my financial goals? So that's kind of those 5 questions that we use as a core, right? Underneath there's lots of other sub questions, but these are the core questions you want to think through in understanding the unique nuances to your personal situation. So we're going to go through a couple fact or fiction here. Hopefully you can see this on the screen. I know it's a little smaller than, probably what you're used to in a slide. But the first question here is, this is fact or fiction. Nearly 70% of women are confident in how much they're saving for retirement. When you think about that, think fact or fiction. Nearly 70% of women are confident in how they're saving for retirement. The next question is here, or statement is, women are about 8 times as likely as men to report they have work interruptions due to caring for their children. Fact or fiction? And the third statement is nearly 40% of women are primary breadwinners in their family. Fact or fiction? So if we look at the first statement here, nearly 70% of women are confident in how much they're saving for retirement. If you answered fiction, you would be correct. The answer is, roughly 51% feel confident that they're saving enough for retirement, as compared to, 68% of men feel confident that they're and how much they're saving for retirement. So you can see there's a gap, almost, so a 20% swing there. So a lot of it's going to be setting the goal setting, the educational process, and really feeling that you have a grasp on your financial goals and your financial tools to get you to reaching those financial goals. The next is women are about 8 times as likely as men to report they have work interruptions due to caring for their children. If you answer fact here, that would be correct. Not only that, but also caring for parents, elderly parents, loved ones. So it's not just, caring for children. There's also a huge pull on a lot of women for caring for elderly parents, whether it be their parents or their spouse's parents as well. So a lot of that falls upon women's shoulder to carry that. The next is nearly 40% of women are primary breadwinners in their family. And if you said fact on this one, that would be true. There's a large percentage of women that are the primary breadwinners or main source of income for their households, whether they be single women, single parents, widowed, or married. There's a large, financial, placement of responsibility on women in 40% of the households. So that gets you to the next thing we want to look at is the 5 questions, which we reiterate. Where am I today? This is kind of the step 1 process, the assessment. Step 2, where would I like to be? That's the goal setting, the dreaming. The third is, can I get there? That's the check. Checking to see the goals and things that I have planned. Are they realistic? Are they on track? And can I achieve them? And if not, how do I get there? How do I get to achieving these goals that I set in the most efficient manner, understanding that your daily life needs to take place. Those things that people that you care about, the things that you care about, all of those things need to be considered as well. And then how do you stay on track? What are those things that you need to do consistently to stay on track to meeting your goals? And what happens too when life happens and you get derailed or some event may throw you off track? How do you then get back on track? So that's some of the things that we look at as well. So when you look at these kind of 5 money questions and start with the where am I today, I think this is where you kind of take that assessment. And this is where you have to kind of go through and understand, really, is this a true statement about me? Is this a false statement about where I'm at today? And what can I do to improve in this area? Right. The number 1 is I know how much we spend each month. And that's kind of on your major categories. And this is really do you know like dollars coming in versus dollars going out of your household expenses each month? Household income, household expenses. And if not, this would be a great place to kind of start. This is not about taking like detailed budgets or things like that, but just understanding what comes in, what goes out each month. That's a first start. Do you have a good grasp on that? And if not, that's where you foundationally want to look at, like, how much are we making in income? How much is in the household for expenses? Then it's going to be, the next step is, what other assets, investments do we have? Do we have cash in a cash account? Do we have CDs? Do we have stocks? Do we have bonds? Do we have mutual fund? Do we have real estate? And some may be yes, some may be no. Some may be just starting out and saying, I don't have any of these things. And I need to establish some of these things. And that will be a good thing to say, what? I need to find out about CDs or stocks or bonds and mutual funds, or purchasing real estate or investment real estate. Or you may be on the other spectrum where you have all of these things, and understanding how they actually play a financial role for you. Then it's looking at, do I have that contingency fund if something were to happen to me or my family, that I could provide for them for our basic essential expenses for the next 6 months, whether that be a job interruption or needing to take care of a sick or elderly parent, or take care of a loved one, a sick child. It could be whatever it is, but these funds would be there to help maintain and continue the family essential expenses during this time period. One of the other key things to look at when you're analyzing where you are today is, do I know the rate of return on our investments, right? Do I know how much my CD is getting? Do I know how much, my stocks and the bonds that we have in our portfolio or that I'm investing in return? And is it a good mix of investments? Do I have it all in one thing? So that's one of the things that you'll kind of start to assess and go through. And I know how much I'm saving for retirement. And this could be on a regular basis. If you're saving 2%, 3% of your salary, or if you're saying I'm saving $100 or $200 each pay period or each month. So knowing that is, kind of understanding that you are actually doing something for retirement, and you understand how much you've actually been saving or investing for retirement. And saving, when you hit a term saving, I want to make sure there's a difference between saving and investing. So I think saving is amount of money that you may be putting in, say, a 401k, a Roth IRA. We'll talk about some of those investment vehicles later, but then it's also picking investments under there to make sure your money is growing over time. I know the value and location of all my retirement accounts. Think about if you do have retirement accounts, do you know the location of them? Do you know where they're at? Because sometimes you may have had one or two or three jobs and you've changed, and now you had retirement plans at various places, but now you don't know where they're at, and you need to consolidate, or you need to look at them and review them, make sure that they're actually growing and being invested according to your specific wishes. One of the next things is, I know how much I am getting, or we are getting, from Social Security. So this just depends. If you're closer to retirement age, you should really start to look at and know what your Social Security benefit will be, and understand, what amount you'd get at a certain age versus, how much you would get if you took benefits earlier versus later, right? So I think that's going to be important to understand that. And then, how much insurance cover do you or your family have as far as life, disability, long-term care? I think those are key things that you really want to make sure that you could take an assessment of and say, yes, I know where our insurance policies are. I know how much coverage we have. I know we have life insurance. I know we have, long-term care, health insurance, or disability umbrella insurance if you needed that. So these are all the types of things that you'd want to go through and get a firm handle on. And a lot of times it's just knowing the location of a lot of these documents, understanding, like, okay, here's my savings for my just reserves, cash reserves. Here's my savings for maybe annual spending on vacations, or Christmas is upcoming. If you're one of those people who like to have a Christmas club account or something like that, where you're just saving for a particular thing, just knowing where those funds and saving vehicles, investment vehicles is really taking inventory. So I'm going to pause right here to see if there's any questions in the chat for people like just really trying to analyze this. Where am I today, and how do you take stock of that? Because that's kind of the first question to ask yourself.
John, I don't see any questions noted right now. Some of those, I'm hearing myself on an echo.
Okay.
So the questions that I received were more about getting the handbook, and that's it,
Sure.
which I've addressed. But my question is, and you might be covering this in additional slides, but do you have kind of percentages we should aim for in these areas? Out of our income, how much should we be saving? How much we should set aside each month? How much should go to, I know this isn't a budgeting session, but how much we should set aside, like for housing, just percentages that we can look towards.
Yeah, those are all fantastic questions to ask. And that's
Thank you.
Not to kind of take us down in like detail, because yes, for saving and invest. So I guess there's really almost two types of people, right? A lot of people don't like the budget and they just like to spend money. So I say, okay, we'll have a savings first mentality. So if you look at savings first, normally that's 6 months of living expenses. So if your living expenses are, say, $3,000 per month, you'd want to make sure you can save up to $18,000 just in cash. And that may take you some time to do that. So that's how we get that 3 to 6 months. So that may be, and typically you want to be able to save 5 to 10% of your annual income. And then you may want to do another 10 to 15% for your retirement and all long-term savings, right? So essentially, if you're looking at it from an overall perspective, you may have the 50, 30, 20 budget, meaning 50% of your income should go to your core mortgage, rent, food, utilities, shelter, clothing, those basic expenses. Then you'd have 30% that should be going to like entertainment, and that's going out as far as meals, vacations, and any kind of debt payments as well. And then you should have like 20% that is really, you can use some of that for debt, but the bulk of that 20% for savings should be going to either long-term or short-term savings. So those are some kind of guideline numbers. There's also numbers you may hear when purchasing a home, like 36% up, like loan to value, or like debt to income ratio. So that just meaning 30% of your gross income up to 36% of your gross income. If you look at it on an annual basis, you shouldn't have more of that going out for debt and expenses as opposed to your income.
Thank you for answering
so
that.
there's
We do have, I appreciate that answer and how comprehensive. We do have a question from an attendee that says, how do you assess, I think this is in relation to your question number 8, how do you assess how much life insurance you should buy if you are single with no children? So I guess what evaluation criteria do you look at?
Yeah, so if you're single with no children, you have to ask yourself, right? You're either on what spectrum are you on? Are you on the younger side or the older side? So it depends, because you could be 25 or you could be 65 or 55. If you're not planning on having any kids or any family, then maybe the insurance should only cover what it would take for final expenses. If you do plan on having a family in the future and maybe you want to get insurance for that, you can typically, I would say, it's an evaluation at that point to say, do I really need it? Am I protecting any assets with this insurance, right? Because insurance is for protection. That's why we buy health insurance for protection, car insurance for protection, home insurance, and life insurance is for protection. So we're protecting something. And if you have no one to protect or that depends on your income, or you don't plan on it in the future, then you may have a very, very small need for life insurance. Or maybe you have no insurance, no need for life insurance because you have enough assets. So that's one way to look at life insurance. Okay,
And
there
along
was
that
another
same
question
vein,
here I see
yes,
on
thank you.
long-term care insurance and when should you get it? This is all of these are very specific information. If you have a need for long-term care insurance would cover you when you're no longer able to live independently or take care of yourself independently. And normally you could get that. I know there's a lot of things on around age 50 to age 60. But depending on what your need is, there's different types of long-term care insurance policies that are out there. So it just depends on what you need, whether you want to, have skilled nursing, whether you want to be in a facility, whether you want care at home, whether you want a family member to care for you, because there's all different types of care that you can get from long-term care. So it is an evaluation because some policies are use it or lose it, meaning you paid for it. If you don't use it, then you lose it. Some are not. Some people may have enough assets to self-insure, meaning they have either a home or enough money to do that, and they can do some different things on that line. But it is really an assessment of, do you actually need it? Number one, and that's going to be for taking care of you in the event that you can't take care of yourself. And then how much do you need? Because then you have to base it on how old are you, when you may need it. Typically, long-term care is needed within the last 3 to 5 years of someone's life expectancy. And then what benefit will you get? Because, like I said, there's all policies aren't designed the same. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, like I said, I could definitely have a one-on-one phone call with you to understand your situation and kind of talk through it with you. Okay, so let's continue on. And okay. So this should be kind of the next question in your workbook there. Where would I like to be? And this is really where I like to have people kind of focus on, where would you like to be? I mean, what are some of the things that you want to, do you want security, financial security? Is that what I'd like, because some people, I'd like to have financial security, just making sure that I have enough to pay my bills and I don't have to stress and worry. Or, I want to be able to have enough that I can help others, or want to be able to have enough to help my nephews, family members, community. I deal with people with all kinds of values and goals. I have some people who said, I really want to be able to give of my time and effort 3 days a week, providing, meals to people who can't get out and get meals, or providing to my local schools and tutoring and education. So these are all the kind of goals that people have, and they tie a financial achievement to it. And then if you look at, your goals here, so I would challenge you to kind of write down, what are your common values? What are the things that you value, whether it's family, happiness, security? Some people like financial freedom is their thing. It's like, I just want to know that, if I go into my job, I don't have to worry about stressing about, paying for the bills. I have the financial freedom to know that. And then there's different stages of goals. And here's some common goals, preparing for retirement, right? Paying down debt, paying off maybe a house or purchasing a house. This is in that whole preparation phase, making sure that they can save some amount of money to be able to retire comfortably. And that could be, years to kind of build that up. The next thing is kind of living in the retirement. Now that you've saved, invested, paid down debt, purchased your home, you have some assets, you have some social security things coming in. Now, how do I actually live and make sure that this lasts throughout my retirement? And that's one kind of question and area to answer. And we kind of go through an assessment with that. And there's various tools and things that I use to kind of model out, what your retirement income would be, how much you would be spending on travel, what other lifestyle considerations that you may have, whether that's being a philanthropic or charitable, visiting grandkids, visiting family. So a lot of these things are kind of that living in retirement. Then paying for education, whether it's for yourself, meaning, some people say, you know what, I want to go and get a different degree. I want to pay for some education when I retire. I want to take a cooking class for 6 months, right? Or it's paying for a child or a grandchild. Or I have some people said, well, we don't have any kids, but we want to pay for our niece and nephew. Or we want to set up just some type of help mechanism for other people in our family that want to have education. So look at some common goals of where would I like to be. And these are just, some of the areas where people say, well, if I'm preparing for retirement, maybe I want to pay down some debt before I get there. So I want to have a debt reduction strategy. That's my, goal for the next year or next 2 years. Or it may be planning for the unexpected. I may want to just put some cash away in the bank and just have that as a cushion. And how do I do that in the most effective manner? Or I've come to the state where now I'm expecting an inheritance. Maybe my, late aunt or a relative left me, $50,000, and now I need to know how to best utilize that. So those are some of the goals and things that I would encourage you to write these down. And because, there's been definitely effective studies on if you write down a goal, you're more likely to achieve it. So just writing down these goals is step one in actually looking to achieve it. So that's why I would encourage you to write down a few goals that you have. And then that's that second step is, okay, where would I like to be? Okay, any questions here?
Yes, you actually have some in the Q&A.
Sure.
The first one is how can we estimate what we will have in Social Security? So I'm going to put that one here. And the second one is, I think you're able to view these, John, is what if you are a single parent living check to check in living expenses, basically mainly basic needs, how do you save? 50 years old, starting all over, no assets. So we could start with the Social Security and then go to that next question if you'd like.
Yes. So Social Security, you can actually get an estimate by going to ssa.gov. You can set up a free account there. Let me see if I can. So yes, you can go to just www.ssa.gov. There you can actually type in and set up your ID and password, and it'll give you an estimate of how much you're expecting to get at age 62, at full retirement age, which for most people is going to be 67 or 66 in a certain amount of months. It'll tell you what you get at age 70. So those are all good things to actually look at is when you're planning, is just go out and getting yourself a copy at www.ssa.gov. And that's where you can actually, from year to year, see what your estimated Social Security amounts would be. The next question here is like a single parent living check to check and living expenses, mainly basic needs. And how do you save? I think the one thing here is trying to just take advantage of any free like things that your employer offers. If they offer free, 401k match. If you don't get that, then I would say if you're getting a yearly tax return, that's a good way to just jumpstart some savings right there. And then looking at, is there anything, which most people, if they're mainly basic expenses, is there anything or any way that I can optimize my expenses such that I can at least save a little bit? And maybe that's starting out with $25 per month and building that up over time to be $30 a month, $40 a month, $50 a month. So those are the things that say looking at reviewing your insurance policies from year to year is a great way to do that. Because the insurance typically goes up, reviewing your cable, from time to time. You have cable, reviewing your cell phone service. I mean, these are things that I do annually just to even get like a $5-10 savings. But if I do that over 4 or 5 things, that's $50-60 a month that I'm saving additionally. So doing those annual kind of check-ins on different services or different service providers can give you a really big, kind of boost there. And then if you're getting a tax return, I say use that as a jump start to any savings. So there was another one. When do I start taking my 401k? And how much should I take at once? See, this is more of a question of how much other things that you have coming in, because if you have Social Security, you have a pension, and you have a 401k, it depends on what's required to be taken if you're at a required age. So this, how much you should start taking, is really a question of what are your monthly expenses at a high level, what's being met by Social Security if you're taking Social Security, what's being, and then what the difference is between. So if your expenses are say 5,000, this is just an example, and you're getting 2,000 from Social Security, then that means you need an additional 3,000 after taxes from your 401k to help fill that monthly budget amount. So that's why it's important to kind of understand what's being spent per month, what's coming in each month, and then what the difference is that you need to take from your 401k or your savings, or how much you may need to work in a part-time job to meet your monthly kind of obligations. Okay. So I'm going to go to the next question here. See, question 3. And this is, can I get there? So this is dealing with a lot of just the questions that you guys have been asking. What is your goal? So your goal may be I want to save $5,000 over the next 3 years in cash, right? So you got a specific goal. You want to save $5,000. You got it measurable. You want to do it in the next, or sorry, you want to save 5,000 in the next, 3 years. Is this achievable? Then you have to say, well, if you can only save $25 a month, that may not be achievable. But if you say, hey, I could save $25 a month, and by the way, I've gotten, a $1,500 or $2,000 tax return every year, then it's like, okay, that's probably doable in the next 3 years. You could take that 2,000, add that 25 per month to that, and then come up with that goal. And then is it relevant? Yes, this is relevant for your cash reserve. And then you also put a time frame on it. So those are some of the things that I kind of help come up with, but those are things that you can actually come up with on your own as well. When would you like to have? I would like to be able to purchase a home or have a down payment for a home in 5 years. Or I would like to retire in 20 years. And this is what I would like my retirement lifestyle to look like. So those are setting those specific goals, because then that's where, a person like myself will come in and help you measure those and say, are they realistic and relevant, or are they achievable? Okay. So those are what we're talking about when we talk about question 3. Can I get there? The next area, so I would say with this, write down a goal for yourself. Make it specific, make it measurable. Even if it's to save $25 per month, or if it's to save, $250 or $25,000 a year, whatever that is, make sure that you can write it down and measure against it. Okay. Question 4, how do I get there? This is a little bit of like kind of the math and things that is being done behind the scenes. The rule of 72, it's kind of one of those things that is pretty easy to utilize because you can use just your basic calculator to kind of figure out using the rule of 72. But if you take any number like rate of return, right? So if you had a CD, certificate of deposit at the bank, paying you 4%, how many years would it take for your money to double? So you would take 4%, 72 divided by 4%. That means in 18 years, if you put $1,000 in the bank, in 18 years, it would be 2,000. So that's how you do, rate of return, using the rate of return for your money to double. The second example I'm using this is, if you had a time frame, right? So you're like, in 10 years, I want my money to double. Or in 5 years, I want my money to double. So you would take 10 divided by 72, and it says you need a rate of return of 7.2% to double your money. So this is going to tell you the time, and this is going to tell you the rate of return that it takes. And this just goes through a scenario of, what that would look like if you assume a rate of 9% return over 32 years. How many times would your money double, right? This is also good for long-term planning. If you assume a rate of return of 7 or 8% over 32 years, how much money would you have if you put in a certain amount? So that's a good way to look at this. So this is just kind of some of the basics behind the scenes of, looking at and calculating for example, if you had a child to pay for education and you're planning with your partner to say, hey, Denise and Paul decided to start saving for Bree's higher education. Bree will start college at age 18. They so far have saved half the amount and they want to contribute to Bree's education. With 12 years to go, what rate of return will it take for them to double that amount? So this is kind of what I look at and kind of help people calculate behind the scenes. What do you need to do? What do you need to invest in? How much risk do you need to take as far as a rate of return? And so this is some of that. How do I get there, right? How much do I need to put in each month if I want to have, $5,000 in, 3 years? Or I want to be able to save $10,000 or $20,000 to help pay for a wedding. Or I want to be able to save $20,000 over the next 5 years because I know I need to replace my car with another used car, right? So those are all things that you have to look at in calculating, how do I get there? Any questions on this area?
Okay. I think you see that help, where can I get these rates of returns?
Oh, where is that? Is that somebody said?
Yeah, this is Patty, and it's in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Saying help, where can I get these rates of returns?
So as far as these rates of return, it depends on, and I'm not going to give any specific kind of products here because it's not a product discussion. But if you look at a 4% rate of return, if you look at any local bank CD, or even the CDs and things that we offer, which CDs are zero risk, you can get a 4% rate of return on a certificate of deposit. When you look at 7.2%, this is really where you're looking at more of a equity type investment or a mutual fund type of investment to get these levels of return. And you have to make sure that you're getting the proper return. So when you start looking at like a 4% rate of return, that's guaranteed, that's FDIC insured up to $250,000. Now, when you start getting at 7.2% rate of return, this is not, the 1980s where you could get a CD or a money market or some government bond for 7.2% with virtually no risk. So when you see something like 7.2 or 9%, these investments have a level of risk. And you need to make sure that you're taking the appropriate level of risk for your personal situation. So if anybody guarantees you these types of rates of return, then it's probably you're taking risk to actually get that. So they can't really guarantee you these rates of return. So this 4% certificate of deposit, when you talk about 7 and 9%, you're looking at some type of stock or mutual fund investment. So hopefully that answers that question. And if you have current investments or you're considering things, I would say maybe let's have just a conversation first before making that investment. Okay. Again, how do I get there? I think we talked about here is kind of the 4 C's. I think we have 3 C's for the cut, or maybe 4: cut, clarity. Forget the other the other C here when he talks about diamonds. But here we're talking about convenience. Take procrastination out of the equation. That's really where you're setting up things to be automated, whether it's taking $20 or $25 out of your paycheck and automatically setting that aside, whether it's taking and setting aside an automatic amount in your 401k. Because once it hits your checking account, more than likely it will be spent. So that's why I tell people, you automate as much as you can to take a lot of the procrastination and those what ifs and oops and things that come up that wouldn't likely cause you to spend the money that you had earmarked for saving. Again, here's consistency. Consistency is one of the biggest things, is doing it month in, month out, no matter what the market conditions are. Having a consistent plan in place is huge, and that gets you to your goal much faster than the stop and start. I tell people one of the best books on consistency is The Tortoise and the Hare. Right? It's a fantastic investment book if you think about it. It's that over time, being consistent and diligent yields great rewards. Again, next thing is choice. You can choose to invest in various types of investment vehicles, whether it's mutual funds, annuities, stocks, bonds, real estate. There's a lot of investment choices, so you have to be able to decipher which one is best for you as an individual, and that should be taken on a risk-based approach. It shouldn't just be like, oh, I have an annuity because my friend has an annuity and it works for, well, just because it works for your friend may not mean it works for you. Or my friend has these, cryptocurrency stocks, or they have these gold coins. Just because they have it doesn't mean it necessarily works for you. And you can't compare your return to their return because their risk may be different than your risk. So that's why it's always important to make sure that you're doing what's best for your personal situation. Control, focus on what you can control, investing a set dollar amount on a regular basis, uh, rather than what you can't, kind of like volatility. That's why I tell people I'd rather you invest $25 consistently than $250 sporadically, because that consistency is where it actually builds up over time, and it starts to get you to build a great financial habit. Okay, so that's looking at the 4 C's. Now we're going to look at some of the actual savings vehicles and investment vehicles. So we have 401k, which is typically going to be employer sponsored. So if you work for a company and it has more than, say, 15, 20 employees, you will likely be offered a 401k, 403b, or 457. So these are tax deferred growth plans. In most cases, employers will give you a match, meaning if you put in 3% of your income, they will match 3%. Some go higher, some do less. But this is a good way to get, in some cases, quote unquote, free money, because if you put in 3%, they put in 3%, you just got a 100% return on your money. One of the other things is a Roth IRA. And then, this is tax-free growth. It's after-tax money. It has some very, very flexible options. Like I say, benefits can transfer to the next generation. But these are, anyone at any age, as long as they're working and earning income, the eligibility depends on how much income they're earning. But if you're 13, 14, 15, 16 earning income, you can contribute to a Roth IRA. And if you're even retired and earning income, depending on how much income, there are some top limits, you can still contribute to a Roth IRA. A traditional IRA is another investment vehicle where you get tax deferred growth, similar to a 401k. But then there are some contribution limits, and you may have to make sure that you earn less than a certain amount of money. So, or it may not be tax advantageous for you to do that. So these are just a few strategies for how you get there. There's other, investment vehicles if you have kids, or other things that you can do if you're maxing all of these out. So there's lots of various choices. Or there's other plans too. If you're a self-employed individual, you're saying, well, I'm self-employed. I don't have anybody that, pays my, health insurance or gives me benefits. I have to do it all on my own. So if that's the case, there's other plans and things that you can set up that we didn't even, cover here as well, that give you the same capabilities to save for your retirement. Or, we have some, you can always save for a home or car purchase or any of these other major kind of expenditures that you would see in your lifetime.
John, I'm going to let you take a breath for a minute, and then I'm going to ask a question.
Sure.
A patron has asked,
yes,
I'm heading into the holidays and I find myself overspending. I know I'm not the only one in America. Where are natural places to cut spending in January or any month?
In any month, you have to look at, and I would say, look at your discretionary. And that's like your restaurants, your even your grocery shopping, right? Because sometimes you may say, well, it's easier just to buy the name brand, but maybe cutting back a little bit in that area. Maybe take 1 or 2 less trips per week and save on gas. Also, one of the things that I used to do for years was I had a list of people who I was going to give a gift to and how much I was going to give to them. and spend on them. Um, and sometimes it worked out, right? But it gave me a good basis to understand, like, hey, if I'm gonna spend, $50 on my brother-in-law, but I was able to find him something that he really wanted for 35, okay, that gave me a little bit more money to, maybe, spend on another family member or friend. So having some of that is really important. It kind of helps guide your spending. You may not always stick to it, but at least if you said, I'm going to spend $1,000 and spent 1,200, you're like, okay, I went over, but at least, I didn't go in and just with some randomly and I spent 2,000 and maybe I didn't have it in my budget in December to spend 2,000. Right. So having that little bit of a who you're going to buy for, how much you're going to spend is like I say, it's a guideline. It's not something you'll have to strictly follow, but it does give you some sense of, okay, here's how much I'm planning on spending, and you may be saying, well, hey, I'm going to cut back a little bit in spending on some of these lavish gifts. I'm going to cut back maybe on a couple trips, save a little bit on gas, save a little bit on my going out expenses for the month of December. And then just having that, and I alluded to it earlier in the call, is like a Christmas club account. I just remember, lots of credit unions and banks used to have a Christmas club account where you would save a little bit each month into that Christmas club. And then when Christmas came, because it's the same day every year, you could plan around it, right? So you could save $50 or $100 a month in this Christmas club. And then when you get to December, you had, $600, $1,000 or whatever to spend. So those are some of the strategies that I would say look at doing. I know some of them are kind of a little late now since, Christmas is right upon us. But if you could still have some shopping and things to do, maybe plan out with a little bit of a list of, okay, here's some of the things I would like to purchase for these, individuals who are left on my list.
I don't think it's ever too late, John. And I by no means, being a librarian, not a financial advisor, but I'm reading into this chat, and it said I find myself overspending. Spending is in the current. You haven't overspent yet, and so Christmas is still a little bit away. So maybe just pull the reins back a little bit. It doesn't make anybody a Grinch to try to find some more ways of being thrifty.
Correct. And there's lots of, like I said, that one is just making a list and then putting a dollar amount next to their name, and then that kind of says, oh, okay, and then trying to stick to it, right? Because Christmas shouldn't be about the dollar amount of the gifts. It should be about the sentiment of the gifts. And I have a 9-year-old, so I have to tell him that a lot. So, okay. The next thing is, how can I stay on track? Right. And this is where we talked about writing down those goals. A lot of it is regularly checking in with yourself, or if you have an advisor, or if you have a accountability partner, you check in with them, whether that be your spouse or a friend. So that's how you kind of check in and stay on track. So some of the action plans is really just go through your kind of finances, and here it says 48 hours, but pick a time where it's not a stressful topic or a stressful time to sit down and go through this. And sometimes you may be able to go through it together, or sometimes I find myself, especially with husbands and wives, they come in and I have to kind of help them navigate this and go through their expenses and kind of come up with what's being spent, what's coming in and what's going out, and then gather all your financial accounts and statements. This is really key, because this could actually be some savings there, right? Understanding, what are you being charged for on your credit cards and monthly expenses, because you may be being overcharged and you just see a reoccurring expense. So getting those financial accounts and statements, looking through them, having a time to complete a monthly budget. It could be as detailed as you want, or it could be, 5 lines. This is how much our rent, mortgage. This is how much we spend on food, transportation. This is how much we spend on everything else, and this is how much we save. So you can have it just, that simple, or you can have it as complex as you would like it. Then, if you're ready within, a certain time period of, whether it's a month or 6 weeks, you may want to, meet with a financial advisor, meet with somebody that can help you translate the information into some realistic goals. Or maybe it's that point in time where you sit down with your accountability partner, or you and your spouse have kind of reconvened to set some goals. Now you've done some talking, you've gathered the information, you've looked at a budget. Now you say, well, how do we plan for the future? And then you start to put that strategy into action. So a lot of times December, January is December, people think about their spending. January, I'm going to change my spending. I'm going to change my savings. I'm going to change my habits. But really put them into action, and having that accountability person there to help you really helps you to be able to push through and make sure that you're putting the right strategies into action, having them reviewed, and then having them assessed each month. So I'm going to pause there to see if there's any questions related.
I have no questions at present.
Okay, so no questions on that. Okay. All right, so let me continue on. And again, here's you can look and you can write some of these things down. Like I say, it's powerful to write things down. Yeah. And then this is just some of the terms we used in the presentation, some notes if you want to take those and write those there. But now I'm just going to have an open chat. And like I said, I apologize about the initial start, as well as, just some of the technical difficulties, because right now I had to kind of save a little bit of the bandwidth on the presentation. So I would love to have shown you my face and facial expressions and things like that too. So.
Well, John, I think one of the
any questions, because sure. Go ahead, Patty. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's quite all right. I think just the name of the session allows us, and we will address another question in a moment, but it allows us as women to openly discuss the questions and concerns that we do have with our finances. And there was a time when this was, yes, considered a taboo subject, and especially for my gender, and that isn't the case now. So we do have another question I'm going to pose to you, but I think what is really helpful, I know in my circle of friendships, is to offer tips that have worked for us in adjusting our budgets. I mean, for example, anyone that knows me knows that I'm a thrifter. I love going thrifting. It's a pleasure for me. It's fun, but it's also a huge cost saver when it comes to certain elements for household items or wardrobe. So there's, other things that we all do for cost cutting that we can openly share with each other, which I think is great, because, it's just a wonderful pool of people that have experienced, tightening the belts. I do have a question from an attendee. What should you look for in an advisor? Do they have to manage your investments, or can they just make a plan for you?
Right. Yes. So I think the biggest thing is you have to look for someone who can educate you and make sure that they understand what you're trying to accomplish, and that it's easy for you to understand. Because that's one of my biggest things is if if you don't understand what I'm trying to tell you, even if it's the right thing for you, you will never buy into it if you don't understand it. So I think education and just being able to slow down and make sure that you understand every step of the way. And an advisor doesn't necessarily have to manage your funds. They can provide you advice. They can provide you coaching. They can provide you accountability. So there's a lot of things that they can do. They can provide insurance assessments. They can provide all kinds of different things. But the biggest thing is they should provide you education and understanding of what your goals are and that you feel and understand the strategies that they're recommending to you. I would say that's number one. Because, for myself, if I don't understand something, I don't want to, use it. I don't want to buy it. I don't want to, be a consumer of it. Right. So I think that's important to kind of make sure that that's first and foremost. The next thing is, like I say, this is a topic that and I have a lot of uh, women clients, either they're single starting out, or a lot of that have been widowed, and now they have to kind of manage everything on their own. So I understand the challenges that are being placed upon women because I see it daily, and I understand some of the challenges and uniquenesses of it. Having grown up in an all-female household as well, I understand the unique challenges of that. So there's a lot of different things that need to be considered. First and foremost, take inventory of where you're at. Understand what you're looking to accomplish. Find somebody that can help guide you, coach you, teach you, first and foremost. And that really listen to what you're trying to accomplish. And then solidifies that through competent information. So those are the things that I would like to, reiterate. I definitely want to thank you all for your time. I know it's a late evening. Some of you probably still have Christmas shopping to do or things like that. But I am always available for I think Patty shared my information, for a phone call, for a Zoom one-on-one. There are specific things that, being in a public setting, I cannot answer, related to specific topics. But if you wanted to have a one-on-one conversation, I'm more than happy to do that. As well as if you wanted to do a one-on-one Zoom, I'm more than happy to do that as well. So hopefully you found something valuable out of this. We do have lots of additional resources and things that are available. So if there's something that you didn't see that you think may be helpful, you can always, I think my email address is on there. There's certain things that we can just easily share via email, or it's on our public kind of website for free as well. So a lot of this stuff is just educational material that's out and available for you to use at any point in time.
John, I really want to thank you for preparing this and also for salvaging the very beginning of this. I know tech issues, especially when they happen in the 11th hour, are always challenging, and you transitioned really well. So thank you for that. John also did a program on budgeting back, gosh, when was that? I can't even remember. It was within the past year.
That was January.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's usually in January because that's when most people,
and
look to kind of revise their budget.
There was a handout. It was a hybrid program, wasn't it? It was in person. But I don't know if we recorded it, but I remember you had some really good handouts on that. So if anyone is interested in that, you may want to contact John for the content there, because it had a lot of fine categories that help us address and really, shine the mirror. So we're looking at our own expenses, nothing to be ashamed of, but just to call them out for what they really are. I know that there's a lot of books in the library about budgeting and personal finance, and we also have some great online sources that I'd be happy to share with you if you wanted to contact me, maybe set up a one-to-one. But this is another question. Are there a couple of budgeting investing websites you would recommend? Well, to this particular attendee, I will say if you go, most libraries, and including our own, will have one on finance, and then all of the electronic resources that we subscribe to. If you'd like to get in touch with me specifically about what you're looking to do, I can point you in that direction from the neutral standpoint of a librarian. But John, do you have any other sites?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at, I know, Credit Karma, You Need a Budget, Quicken. I've used Quicken myself personally for almost 20 years. So there's those, and then just we hand out like budget worksheets. These are just like PDF worksheets that you could fill out. There are Excel worksheets out there. So it depends on what you're looking to accomplish and how detailed you want to be. Some people want really detailed information. I know Empower, which is EMPOWER, offers this, where you can do a budgeting through their service. And a lot of these are free apps. Some you do have to pay if you want more detailed and more integrated features. But some people just like the pen and paper. So we send them out these budget PDFs. There are also budget Excel worksheets as well.
Thanks for mentioning Quicken. Quicken has always been a favorite of mine. It's really, I really like the granular, and Quicken will tell me, really what I've spent on X category within the certain time period. And it's very confronting, but it's also really, really helpful in goal setting.
Yeah, and a lot of your actual banking apps will give you alerts and things on specific categories. Because I know I have alerts set up if I, spend too much at certain, coffee place, right? It's like, hey, you spent, $30 at Starbucks this month, or it'll give me an alert. So there are things that you can do in your own personal banking apps as well. So there are lots of, I guess, free resources, as well as there's, depending on how, like I say, detailed and granular you want, there's some paid resources as well.
To everyone who attended tonight, I want to mention that this session has been recorded, and it will be up on the Schaumburg Township District Library's YouTube channel within the next day. So I just wanted to show, Patty, can you repeat the site? Quicken, it's been around for about 20 plus years. I used it back when it was like a CD install, and I just, do the upgrades periodically on the, on an online subscription. So I hope you found that useful. But to everyone, John, are you still connected with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, there you are. There you are, because it's me and only me on the screen. So to everyone, I want to say thank you very much. John, have a wonderful holiday. We'll look forward to, pardon me, welcoming you back in person once the library has finished its renovation and our meeting rooms are open again for programs.
Yes, thank you all, and have a happy holidays. And
Happy New
as
Year,
always,
everyone.
if there's anything I can answer for you, I'm more than happy. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. Good night.